Hey y'all, so a little while ago I posted a short brief review on a comic book, an online comic book I was reading called Shades of A. At the time my review was mostly focused around the themes and statements of the comic book and the fact that it was an online comic book, so I didn't think it would get printed or finished and it would just maybe be forever online. Well, I was 100% wrong! A Kickstarter page just began for people to send money to get copies of the comic book, which is now completed, and also for the comic book to go on as a series. So more pages will be added for a second issue. But basically, you can send money in and get copies of the first comic book, and if he gets enough money, he might make more comics and add to the series. He needs to get a lot of money though. I will post a link to the Kickstarter page for those who want to order the comic book. I would suggest doing so because it's a good read. I've already ordered one. So yeah, the comic book is actually done. I actually read the thing. There might be more to it later. He might make a second issue, but for now, it's completed and it's done. So I thought I'd post an ending review and ending comments about what I just read. So, ending comments. Well, I mostly talked about in my first review the themes and the statements. I didn't really talk about much else though, so I'll talk about the other elements. First, I'll talk about the weakest element, the artwork. It's obvious that Tab Kimpton, I still can't pronounce his name, I'm still a horrible person, is still learning his craft. Now, he's a lot better drawing than I am, he's a lot better drawing than most people are, but he's still definitely learning his craft. And some parts really show that off. Like, for example, there's nothing really inventive about the artwork. It doesn't really do different things too much. It's all very simple based. But then again, it's a drama, it's a dramatic story, it should be simple and down to earth. So it makes sense. It doesn't really take away from the story. It's just not up to par to some of the mainstream stuff. But then again, it's not supposed to be. The artwork does fit the style and the point of the story. And it's not a major hindrance. It's definitely better than some stuff out there. So getting on to the better stuff, the characters. So I guess I should comment on all the characters because they were all very interesting characters. So first is the hero of the story, Anwar, our asexual character who is just discovering his asexuality, isn't quite comfortable with it, and the main plot of the story is that he doesn't want to be asexual, he wants to fix himself, and that's what he tries to do, and it makes it kind of a controversial story, but a good one. So anyways, a few aspects about Anwar. He's a character that it's obvious the writer did do a fair bit of research on asexuality. If you've read up on that, or if you are ace, he goes through some stuff that you might have that is relatable, and he is well described and well handled, and you can tell the writer knows what they're talking about. Now, of course, a thing that a lot of readers complained about was that he was too self-centered, but you have to understand that he sees something as wrong with himself and he's trying to fix it. So he becomes obsessed with that issue. And that's the way it is. When you think there's something wrong with you, you become obsessed, and it gets to the point where it's the only thing you can think about. So that's what he's like. He's exactly like that, and that's how people act in that situation. So yes, you do become self-centered when you think there's something wrong with you and you're trying to fix it. He's extremely self-centered, but that's how people act under that situation. So it's a little annoying, but it's very true to how someone would act in that situation. The second character, and this was the real surprise character, definitely one of the standouts was Chris, Anroy's partner, the boyfriend that he became to be, the dating partner. Chris was a really well-handled character, and typically when you have a character like Chris, like a cross-dresser or a character of that nature, the writer or the maker of the show will make them really feminine and give into stereotypes and kind of do a paint-by-number character and make them generic. But that wasn't done in this case. It was really interesting because, well, the thing about cross-dressing is when a girl does it, when a girl wears a suit and a tie, it's seen as empowerment. When a guy does it and wears his dress, it's seen as a joke. And the story kind of put that on its head because Chris, the cross-dressing character, uses said cross-dressing to empower himself. You get the sense that he does it because he likes doing it, and it makes him feel good, and he's a macho guy. He is, so he uses the cross-dressing to empower himself. It actually machos him up. So it was an interesting turn of the head. Now this is mostly just hinted at, though. It's not really delved into, which would be something really interesting if the series went on, if it delved into this a bit more. You only see him dressed as a girl in a handful of scenes. But it's definitely hinted at throughout that he does it as a way to empower himself, which I thought was a really interesting idea and was well displayed and well handled. Third character is JD. Mostly a comic relief character, but still well handled. First ever fictional character I've ever read about that ever identified as a gender. First one. The story does not delve into that much at all. It's just kind of a side note for the character. But it's good to have side notes for the characters. It gives them more depth and more personality, of course. And it definitely doesn't get anything wrong about that gender identity. I don't think anybody who read it would disagree in any way. So once again, seems like the writer definitely did their research and knows what they're talking about. So kudos once again. Those are all the main characters, and they're all very well handled. And the good thing is they go together well. There's a back and forth banter in the comic that really shines through. It's like one of those sitcoms, you know. It's not a one-person show; it's a multi-person show, and each person adds that nice little extra bit of spice. Now, so that was good, and the overall story and arc is all well handled, and that Anwar does go through his bit of stuff. He comes to terms a bit. He handles everything a bit. So the plot's very interesting. I would suggest watching my first review to get a bit more details on the plot. Now, as for the ending, well, the comic just kind of ends. In a sense, that's good because it's like real life. Nothing's ever completely resolved. The story just keeps going and going and going. So the comic just stops at one point saying, oh, this feels like a good enough spot. So you know there's more of a story, but then again, you know, life is eternal. It just keeps going and new problems always pop up. So it feels proper to just suddenly stop. It's a bit unfitting read-wise, but you get what the writer's trying to do. So is it an untraditional ending? Definitely. But does it fit the tone of the story? It sure does. It just suddenly stops, but it makes perfect sense. So I can see some readers complain about that, but it fit the story. I liked what it was going for. This is life. Life is eternal. New problems will pop up. The relationship will grow. Stuff will happen. Let's just randomly end it here. Why not? Bang. So it just suddenly stops. The story isn't completed yet, but the story would never be completed because, you know, their lives would go on and they might have kids or adopt or something, or new stuff would happen and the new stuff would happen and the new stuff would happen and who knows. So yeah, the story just ends. But hey, that's not a bad thing. Now, Chris and Anwar as a couple, definitely well done couple. I wouldn't say they're cute, but they're really well developed and they go well together. And it's really refreshing. It is really refreshing to have two characters who actually talk about what they like and what they don't like intimacy-wise. You know, you have so many shows where people are just rushing into relationships head first, not really thinking things through at all, and then these two characters are, wait, no, hold up. I think this would be a good idea. No, that's probably a bad idea. No, let's do that. No, we shouldn't do that. It's kind of like that scene from Seinfeld where Seinfeld, and oh man, I can't even remember her name because I'm such a horrible person, but you know, they had that big whole discussion before doing the nasty in the bedroom. It's kind of like that for a whole series. But it's refreshing to see people actually talk about relationships and what works and what doesn't work and what they are okay with and what they are not okay with, and actually being human beings and communicating in a relationship. You know, you're supposed to communicate in a relationship. It's called dating, everybody. So that was very refreshing, very well handled. It's actually a lot more well-rounded and realistic than most relationships. Definitely a lot more well-handled than the relationship, probably in shades of gray, that this was mocking. So I ordered a copy. It definitely has, so far, the best asexual character I've ever read. Granted, he's one of the only ones I've ever read, but he's still the best. That's got to count for something. So if you want to read something really unique and original, go to the Kickstarter page or a copy. I did. I think it's a good cause, and I think it's a good read. And that's my secondary review.